Juan Armenta, President of the Physicians
And
Assistants.
sorry to interrupt you. He just logged in. We'll do a quick mic check. I'll start the video recording and I'll turn it back to you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you there. Dr. Hawkins, if we can do a quick mic check. So I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone at this moment. So just click the unmute me button. And meanwhile, I'm going to hit the record button. That's going to make a loud announcement.
Good morning, Dr. Hawkins.
Good morning. Thank you. And back to you, Juan Armenta. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is Juan Armenta, current president of the Physicians Assistants Board. I am now calling the meeting for August 9th to order. Ms. Gompers, could you please establish a roll call?
Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Charles Alexander,
Present.
Juan Armenta,
Present?
Jennifer Colquest isn't present, correct?
That's my understanding, correct.
Should I not call her?
We can just list her as absent.
Okay. Sonia Early,
Present.
Jed Grant, Randy Hawkins,
Difficulty unmuting. He just joined us, did he not?
we didn't do a mic check with him, did we? Oh, we did. Okay.
Sorry, were you making a roll call? I was on a low volume, so I couldn't hear. Is it Hawkins?
All right. Diego Nzunza,
Present.
and that completes the roll call.
Okay, excellent. Very well. Special thank you for past President Jed Grant for being here all the way from, I believe he's in Egypt now, if I recall correctly. So thank you, Jed, for, I know it's a difficult time change. So the next order of business is consideration of the May 10th, 2021 board minutes. I know they were in the packet, and does anybody have any comments, changes, additions to those board minutes? All right, hearing no suggestions, Will, do we open for public comment on the minutes? Thank you. All right, so at this point, Madam Moderator, if you will open the channels necessary to allow for public comment on the issue of the minutes from the prior hearing.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, the instructions are on the screen. You simply click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. You type, "I would like to make a public comment" in the Ask field, and you send it to all panelists. And when prompted, you click the Unmute Me button. I'm going to pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the Q&A feature. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator. The public comments being closed, does anybody care to make a motion to approve the prior minutes as published without additional correction?
This is Jed Grant. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Any second, please?
Hi, this is Sonia Early. I'll second.
Excellent. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 10th meeting without correction as posted. Ms. Gompers, would you please call the vote?
Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza.
Aye.
And that completes the vote.
You. Okay, the next item on the agenda are the president's reports. And let me just, a couple of things. First of all, I think you've all heard that Will has accepted a promotion. So while we regret losing him, I think he's done a great job for us. We certainly congratulate him on his new promotion. So congratulations, Will. I also wanted to let you know that we've had continuing contact with CAPA. It's been very cooperative, including our appearance before the Med Board. CAPA did not make any comments with respect to the regulations listed in Agenda Item 12D1, which Med Board went ahead and adopted without any changes. We all know that member Jennifer Callcrest is not here today due to a loss of a family member. So we understand her absence. The other items I need to report on are the continuing waivers of regulations. They are, again, these are all effective through September 20th, relating to licensing, renewal of licensing, restoration, reactivation of licensing due to the COVID emergency. Of course, none of these affect persons on probation or whose licenses may have been affected due to disciplinary reasons. The other waivers allow for easier vaccination by practitioners and even students due to the COVID emergency, and those waivers are published within the meeting packet if anybody needs to review them. Let's see. And I think Sonia was going to now talk to us about the American Academy of Physicians Assistants title change. So, Vice President Early, if you'd please inform us.
Yes. So on May 24th of 2021, the American Academy of Physician Assistants House of Delegates passed a resolution affirming physician associate as the official title for the PA profession by a majority vote of 198 to 68. They are currently, they have begun decisions or discussions to implement that policy. However, it is inappropriate. We want to make sure that all the physician assistants know that it's inappropriate for PAs to hold themselves out as physician associates at this time until legislative and regulatory changes are made to incorporate the new title. Additionally, the AMA and the AOA have weighed in on their concerns, and the AAPA legislative CEO has also responded to their concerns and stressed, our commitment to collaboration and patient-centered based practice. And then also mentioned that the new title will help patients to better understand the training and expertise of PAs. And so removing the word assistant from the title will eliminate a common misconception that PAs simply assist physicians, when in fact we diagnose, treat, and care for patients. And that was given by the CEO, Lisa Gables. Additionally, I would just want to make sure that everyone knew a little bit about the history of AAPA. So back in the 1970s, originally the organization was incorporated as the American Association of Physicians, apostrophe S, assistants, and then changed the name to the American Academy of Physicians Associates in June of 1971. There was later on, maybe a year later, in 1972, February of 1972, the American Academy of Physicians, apostrophe S, assistants, was incorporated. And then I just want everybody to know the apostrophe was eventually dropped, leaving the organization with the current title. Now, with that, back in the 70s, the Yale program was incorporated as physician associates. So, and currently, they still hold the name Yale Physician Associate Program. I believe there's others around the country, but that is a longstanding program that has been physician associate since its inception. So for some in the physician assistant community, we are going back to our roots. So you can see how this has played out throughout our existence. And so moving back to the physician associate title is nothing new, but I understand where the ramifications come in 2021. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that little bit of history as it relates to the name change. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Any comments anybody might have on this topic? I know it's novel, and I think any input from our other PAs on the board might be useful here if you folks have comments. All right, hearing none, let us move to the next paragraph B, which is Executive Officer Khan's report. So Rosanna, please, if you would take us through your report.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off with the pandemic response. The board's office is operational and open to the public during the COVID-19 pandemic. Board staff continues to be on a rotational telework schedule while ensuring that all operational needs are met. Personnel update. Effective June 16, 2021, Christy Voong, Board's probation monitor, was promoted to Staff Services Manager 1. Ms. Voong received her bachelor's degree in social work from California State University, Sacramento. She worked at a nonprofit organization providing case management services to duly diagnosed adults with mental illness and developmental disabilities. She was later promoted to a team leader position within this organization to oversee and monitor a new program where she provided program development and direct supervision to staff. Ms. Voong joined state service in 2014 as an enforcement analyst for the medical board, physician assistant board, and the podiatric medical board. She was later promoted to a probation analyst with the medical board. Ms. Voong joined the PAB in September 2019 as the probation monitor. Ms. Voong will oversee the licensing and enforcement programs and provide general management level support to all PAB activities. Please join me in congratulating Ms. Voong on her promotion and welcoming her into her new role. Recruitment efforts are underway to fill the vacant probation monitor position behind Ms. Voong. Board staff anticipates filling the position soon. During this time, Ms. Voong has graciously continued working in this position. Once the position is filled, the board will be fully staffed. Information technology. Board staff continues to review and redesign the board's website to upgrade to the latest template. The new design and layout of the website will streamline the information presented and make it more user-friendly. Board staff anticipates the website redesign to be complete by the end of the year. Along with Facebook and Twitter, board staff is also utilizing subscriber alert system and its website to serve as the primary communication tools to maximize outreach and communication. This concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Hawkins, may I ask a question?
Go ahead, Dr. Hawkins.
I was slow to get to the unmute button with the last item, the physician associate title. My basic question is, does that have any fiscal implication, changing from assistant to associate of significance? Any fiscal monetary implications related to the change?
Who would best answer that? I think maybe Sonia and Rosanna, maybe you can weigh in on that. I don't anticipate any, but maybe you can answer Dr. Hawkins' questions a little better.
That is a great question. I would anticipate that the name change would be of ease, but of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say that there's probably going to be some monetary, because just to change the name, I'm sure, that there's going to be, either paper, whatever there may be, but I am not sure the amount or, the dollar amount, maybe because everything is computerized and digitalized now, maybe, just changing of that name is in terms of our standpoint, but I would think that there would be some type of, but that's a guess of mine, would be some type of monetary cost.
So it sounds like, Sonia, what you're envisioning is the cost associated with, let's say, changing logos, changing letterhead,
Right.
those types of things.
Right, exactly.
Rosanna, do you see any other potential fiscal impacts?
If it is adopted, it'll be minor and absorbable. That's what I see, but we still have to do a fiscal analysis on that.
Okay. Is that the satisfactory answer, Dr. Hawkins?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. All right, so were there any comments on the executive officer's reports? Very well, thank you, Rosanna. Hearing none, let us move to the board activity reports, licensing. Staff member Caldwell, if you will, please.
We're going to start off with page 57 of the meeting materials. It's the licensing population by type. I don't know if the moderator can go ahead and put that up on the screen for us.
This is the moderator. If you give us a page number, we can scroll right to it.
So the meeting materials, my number is 57.
Thank you. And we will work on making that face the appropriate direction. Thank you.
Mhm. So population by type, as of July 15, we had a total of 21,495 licensees, of which 14,835 have a current status, 29 are inactive, and 1 is temporary family support. We can move to page 58 if there aren't any questions.
Quick question. I'm not sure
Sure.
I've seen that term before, temporary family support. What does that mean?
So that means there's been a hold placed on the licensees, so they do what's called a 6-month allowance of time on their license, so they comply with terms and conditions for any alimony or child support that
Okay.
they may be in arrears.
All right,
So,
very good. Thank you.
So the next report we have is the summary of licensing activity. And this shows you that during April 1st of 2021 through June 30th, we received 406 applications for new licenses, and we issued 324 licenses. And then we had 1,670 individuals renew their license. Any questions on that report? Okay, if we could move forward to the next page. Perfect. So pending application workload. This shows an overall just glimpse of the desk age that we have applications on file right now for. And we currently have the majority of the applications fall within that 0 to 30 days, meaning that they've been assigned to a desk for that length of time. And then we do have some that fall outside of that 0 to 30 day range. The 0 to 30 day range doesn't indicate that that's when they're getting a review. That just means how long they've been in our system. So we're right now reviewing applications received on or around July 12th. So we are within that about a month margin for review. So if you were to apply today, you would expect to hear from the board within 3 to 4 weeks. And a lot of licensees are getting not only a review that's completed, but their license being issued. So that has an average desk age and average application age. And the application age will always differ slightly because it depends upon when the application gets assigned to a staff member. So that it could be a little bit higher than the desk age. If you scroll down, moderator, to the next page. That just carries over the same type of report, breaking down from the desk age to the application age, which will be a little bit higher than the desk age. Any questions on the pending application workflow? Okay, hearing none, the last screen for the licensing report would be the licensing performance measures. And this captured between April 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2021. This target of 20 days was set back in 2013, I believe, when it was first doing licensing for the board. And at that time, applicants were typically getting reviewed and licensed within about a 2 week to 30 days, I would say. We had a lot fewer schools across the nation, as well as, a state specific to California. So the work has definitely increased, the workload. So we're currently working on increasing that target time to align more realistically what the board is seeing now for a 30-day target. And that just means that they'll be reviewed and hopefully complete within 30 days.
Ms. Caldwell, let me ask you a question. The change in that target date, other than internal performance measurements, does it have any downstream effects, changing it or modifying it, or anything fiscally, or anything from a regulatory standpoint, or is it just
No.
Okay.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So the one thing that's not reported on any of these, and I spoke with an individual who's assists us with questions that we have about our reports, is that when an application is received and it's assigned to a staff member, it may take a couple of weeks again for the review to happen. And so when we pull that file and we match everything up with what's in house, what we've received, and we we note that there's deficiencies, we will, in their account, set what's called an application milestone marker. And that milestone marker takes the responsibility from the board and places it back on the applicant. So say the applicant applies, they haven't graduated from their program and haven't taken the PANCE exam. Those are the two deficiencies that we note on their letter. Until we receive those fulfillment of those two deficiencies, it sits on their as the applicant's responsibility to complete the application. That's not tracked on any of these reports, and I think that's the target rate that we're always shooting for, is that we at least complete the review, the initial review, within a 30-day window, and let them know if there's anything missing. If there's not, they're typically licensed within maybe the same day that they're reviewed, or a couple of days within meeting that final of us receiving that final requirement. But the internal milestone marker that's placed on the account is also, there's an end date placed on it. So they graduate from the program, they take the PANCE, we get the score, we monitor on a weekly basis scores that are released from the NCCPA. We review everybody that's in the drawer, and we will pull all those files. And if that's the last requirement that needed to be received to complete that person's application, the date that we receive the score would be the end mile marker. So that's something that I'm working with an analyst to go ahead and get another report ran to show us how much responsibility, or the length of time that's sitting on the board's shoulders to perform reviews. But from the time we receive an application to the time the applicant gets an update is within that 30-day range currently. Any other questions?
Okay, Ms. Caldwell, does that conclude your report?
That's it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a lovely day.
You too. Thank you, Julie. Okay, so next up is Staff Member Melendez on the complaint report.
I will be providing you a section of the enforcement activity report in regards to the complaints for the fourth quarter. We have recently updated our report, and we will be focusing on the fourth quarter of April 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2021. As you can see, we have also provided stats from the previous quarter. From the previous quarters, this report will also show how we are trending this fiscal year to last fiscal year. First off, we have received our complaint volume. We have received 128 complaints. There were no complaints received of convictions and arrest for this quarter. Intake. We have 134 cases assigned to the desk analyst. 0 complaints are pending at the intake at this point. Complaints and investigations. There are 22 complaints were referred for investigation. 59 complaints and investigations were closed. 142 complaints were pending at the analyst desk. 86 investigations pending at the field. Investigation aging. The average age of pending investigations are 272 days. Investigations over 8 months old, there are 37 cases. And moving on to the next chart on page 64. The following chart is on the complaints received by type and source. And there's also an explanation for each section below. I would also like to add that at the last board meeting, there was a question on how many complaints are received that involved telemedicine. At this time, we have no breeze code that will provide us this stat. I would also like to add that I did take count of how many we received that mentioned telemedicine. We received 2 cases. The issues of the 2 cases did not um, have anything to do with telemedicine, but it mentioned in the complaint that the initial PA visit was done via video conference. And that concludes my section of the report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
I do have a question. I noticed under the investigations aging, we see a significant, for the better, change. Can you give us a thumbnail of what you attribute those drastic drops, 43%, 52%? That's great. So just a couple of highlights of what you think is helping in that regard.
From the field, I couldn't tell you exactly what's attributing to those changes. I know that we're working closely with them every day when we have questions, and you know, if they need information from our end, we're providing it to them as soon as possible. And I know they are moving the cases much quicker, and I did notice the changes when they send them back to our end.
Very good. Well, do us a favor. You know, this is a good trend, and we want to identify what factors are contributing to these good trends so we can keep doing them. So maybe for the next meeting, if you could just make some notes and let us know what you think are contributing to these trends, I think that would be helpful for
I
us.
definitely will.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions for Staff Member Melendez, people? All right. Thank you so much for that report, and we'll move on to Staff Member Hayden for the disciplinary report.
Thank you, President Armenta. Good morning, everyone. I will be presenting the discipline statistics. That would be page 66. If you could please move to that report.
Hi, this is Jed. I'm not sure if it's only me, but I can barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Is that better?
That's a little better. When you said okay, it was much better.
Okay, how's that?
That's pretty good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jed. So I'll be presenting the discipline statistics for the fourth quarter and the overall numbers for the fiscal year 2020-2021. The fourth quarter runs from April 1st through June 30th, and the fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th, 2021. So I'm going to begin with the suspensions section. There were 2 interim suspension orders issued in the fourth quarter. The total for this fiscal year is 3. There were 3 cease practice orders issued in the fourth quarter, and the total for the fiscal year is 1. To the next section is the Office of the Attorney General Transmittal. There were 15 cases initiated in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year is 37. 39 cases are pending at the AG's office. The average age of the pending cases is 294, which is down 41% from last year. The next section is the formal actions filed, withdrawn, and dismissed. There were 8 accusations filed in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year is 22, which is 22% from last fiscal year. There were no accusations and petition to revoke probations filed in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year were 2. The next section is the administrative outcomes and final order. There were no license application denials for the fourth quarter, but the total for the fiscal year were 2. There were no licensees placed on probation in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year is 9. There were no public reprovals in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year was 1. There were no license revocations in the fourth quarter. The total fiscal year is 1. There was 1 licensee surrendered in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year is 9. So on to the next section is a citation and fine. So there were 4 citations issued in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year is 5. One citation was closed and resolved in the fourth quarter. The total for the fiscal year were 2. 3 citations are pending for the fourth quarter and overall fiscal year. There were no fines issued in the fourth quarter, but the total for the fiscal year is 1,000. There were no fines issued, no fines received, in the fourth quarter, but there was a total of 1,000 received. So this concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have the same question as the in the previous report. I note a significant average age, a drop in pending cases, which is terrific. And if you don't have comment on why that may be now, I would ask the same for you for next time. If you could just highlight the factors for us that you think are causing that improvement, so that we can just be mindful of them looking forward.
Absolutely. I will do that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. President, I have a question if I could be recognized.
Absolutely. Mr. Grant, please go ahead.
I noticed that there were, I think if I recall correctly, there were 2 or 3 PC-23s filed, but on the previous report, there were no complaints received regarding arrest or conviction. Can you explain why there's a difference in those numbers? I would think there would at least be, if you're doing a PC-23, you probably ought to be an arrest somewhere.
So you mean a PC-23, the suspension orders for this fiscal year, or you mean last fiscal year? I just want to make sure I understand.
I'm really having a lot of trouble hearing you. I think what you asked of which fiscal year. So I was talking about in the last quarter. On the previous report, we were told there were no complaints related to arrest or conviction, but on your report, there were, I think, 2 or 3 interim suspension orders issued. So I'm just wondering why there's that difference.
Oh, I will have to look into that. I'm sorry. I believe those 2 suspensions were interim suspension orders and not PC-23s, and I think we gap them together, but I will find out which specifically those were and give you a better answer next time. Okay?
Yeah, that would be fine. Maybe you could just explain if there is a situation where a ISO or PC-23 might be filed where someone has not been arrested, because to my mind, usually those are done when someone is arrested or charges are filed against someone that would affect their practice.
That's correct. PC-23s are only when there's an arrest. I would have to look into that, those specific suspensions, and then I can let you know for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because on the complaint report, there should be correlation. That's a good pickup there, Jed. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for looking into it. I look forward to hearing about that next time.
Okay, any other questions for Staff Member Hayden on the disciplinary report? All right, hearing none, the next 2 reports, probation and diversion, are from Staff Member Vong, so please proceed. And thank you, Ms. Hayden, for your report. So Ms. Vong, please proceed.
Thank you. So for the probation activity report for the period of April 1st to June 30th, 1 licensee entered probation, 3 licensees completed probation, and there was 1 voluntary surrender while on probation. There's a total of 61 probationers with 47 active probationers, and 14 are told. Currently, I know previous quarters, Mr. Grant has asked about compliance issues. I've noticed there's an increase in submission of late reports by the probationer or their supervising physician. But usually the probationer will provide me with an update, letting me know why the reports will be late, and then we will set a an extension for that. So that's something I've noticed an increase on. But this pretty much completes my probation activity report. Are there any questions?
Yeah, hi, this is Jed. Thanks. I appreciate you remembering that question and answering it. Just one follow-up on that is, do you think that the delay that you're getting is related to COVID, or can you know, the pandemic or something like that, or is this just maybe a coincidence? Do you think there's any correlation between getting some late reports and the pandemic?
I believe there is a correlation with the pandemic, because a lot of probationer will let me know that, you know, they're a little bit behind on the clinic. The supervising physician, like maybe or they no longer have as many staff, so they are a little bit behind, and the supervising physician is like have to have more duties because of lesser staff. So yes, I definitely see a correlation.
Great, thank you.
If there's no other questions, I can move on to the next report, which is on page 71. So for the diversion program activity report for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2020 and 21, there are a total of 3 active participants in the board's diversion program. There are no new participants in this past quarter. This concludes the diversion program activity report.
All right, any questions of Ms. Long on the diversion report? Very good. Let's see. So thank you, Ms. Long, for those reports. So the next item agenda is the director's update. Who is going to speak on that issue from DCA?
Interrupt President Armentis as Will McGuire just wanted to remind us to do a large public comment for all of item 5.
Oh, sorry, no problem. Yes, of course. Ms. Moderator, please open the channel for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. Simply click on the Q&A icon, which is located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type, I would like to make a public comment in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. And when prompted, click the Unmute Me button. So I'll pause for a moment there to allow members of the public time to access the Q&A feature. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, having heard no comment, again, I thank all the staff members for their reports. And we'll move on to item 6, which is the DCA Director's Update. Who is going to speak to that issue?
I'm Miller. I'm with Board of Bureau Relations. Can you hear me okay?
I think you need to get a little closer to your mic, please. It's a little low.
I've got a headset and a mask on, so I will try to speak as loudly as possible. Does this work better?
Yes, that sounds better. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, good morning, President Armenta and board members. I'm Brianna Miller with Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to provide a departmental update to you all. Starting with appointments, one of our top priorities in Board and Bureau Relations is appointments, and I would like to provide a brief overview. Currently, the board has 3 vacancies, 2 public positions, and a licensee position. DCA and all the appointing authorities share the goal of a fully seated, diverse, and effective board. Filling current and upcoming vacancies is a priority. If any members know any great candidates, or if any members of the public are interested in serving, please find the link titled Board Member Resources on DCA's homepage to apply for an appointment. Moving on to COVID-19 safety measures. On July 26, the governor announced enhanced safety measures for employees in healthcare settings. To combat the spread of COVID-19 and protect vulnerable communities, California is implementing a standard to require state workers and workers in healthcare settings to either show proof of full vaccination or be tested at least once a week. Workers who do not show proof of vaccination will be subject to regular COVID-19 testing and will be required to wear appropriate PPE. Questions from licensees about the healthcare worker requirements can be directed to the California Department of Public Health. Requirements for state workers are being implemented by DCA, and DCA appreciates the assistance of staff. We will be in touch with additional information we receive on this effort. And we know things are moving quickly, and there's a lot of information, both official and unofficial. And statewide guidance for the use of face coverings from the California Department of Public Health remains in place unless a local health jurisdiction issues a stricter public health ordinance tailored for the situation in their communities. Recently, there are several counties, including Los Angeles and Sacramento counties, that have issued health orders requiring face masks to be worn by both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals while indoors. I encourage all members of the public to visit DCA's COVID-19 website for updates and resources on the state's reopening plan, public health guidance, vaccinator resources, vaccine distribution, and more. Remote meetings will continue, so DCA is receiving many questions about when and how boards will meet again in person and whether they can continue to meet remotely. The ability to meet remotely is tied to the governor's executive orders and the state of emergency. The executive order allowing remote meetings is set to expire on September 30th, after which time boards will be required to follow all aspects of the Open Meetings Act, including having publicly noticed and accessible locations, unless a change in law happens. I think we all recognize the cost savings and increased public participation associated with remote meeting options. So in the meantime, DCA will do all it can to assist boards and bureaus to transition safely to in-person meetings and keep you informed of any changes to meeting requirements. Boards and bureaus are looking ahead to what changes can be made permanent for efficiency and employee well-being, such as telework and eliminating paper processes. And finally, I'd like to touch on required board member trainings and the learning management system. As a reminder, 2021 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year. This means that all employees and board members are required to complete the training during this year. Please also be advised that you will now access this training through the Learning Management System, or LMS, which is DCA's training portal. We have created profiles for each of you in the LMS and informed your executive officer of the steps you will need to take to log in and access the training. Board and Bureau Relations is also happy to assist you with any questions or concerns you have about transitioning to LMS. Ultimately, it will house your training records and may also be used to sign up for other mandatory trainings, and we're proud to announce that LMS now includes the ability to register for the board member orientation training. And as a reminder, newly appointed and reappointed board members are required to attend the board member orientation training, or BMOT, within a year of appointment or reappointment. And the next training will be held via WebEx on October 13th. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help you, and if there's anything we can do to assist you all, please reach out. And that concludes my presentation, and I will hand it back over to President Armenta. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. So it looks like then, Rosanna, our meeting in November will be in person, if I understood the report correctly.
This is Brianna. So information is, it's all fluid right now. We'll keep everyone apprised as we know more, but right now, concretely, we do know that the executive order ends on September 30th. That's not to say things might be subject to change.
Right, right. In other words, as it stands right now, if nothing changed, we would be live in November.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Ms. Miller. We appreciate you coming by and spending time with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Will, do we need a public comment on this section?
Yes, you do. And as you mentioned before, I'll be leaving the DCA, unfortunately. And as my parting gift, I'll just remind you guys, every item needs public comment. I think the only exceptions we sort of make are the president's welcome, establishment of quorum, and perhaps adjournment, I suppose. So besides those items, everything else, even if it's information only, we just cover our bases and take public comment on those.
Okay, great. Now I know why Jed had that pink sign in front of him that said public comment all the time in live meetings. So, Madam Moderator, if you would please open the channel for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Members of the public, the Q&A is now open. If you would like to participate, click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type, I would like to make a public comment, and send it to all panelists. And when prompted, click the Unmute Me button. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. All right, very well. Let's move on to item 7, which is a budget update by DCA budget analyst. Please let us know who you are and give us your report, please.
Can you hear me good?
That's fair. Volume level, yes, thank you.
Okay. So hi, my name is Suzanne Balkes, and I am one of the budget analysts here at Department of Consumer Affairs. I oversee Physician Assistance Fund, and I am here to present on some of the materials we provided. Those will be on page 1 of the agenda item 7 and page 2 of agenda item 7 of your meeting materials. It includes our fund condition statement that we currently have projections included into, and our projected expenditure. So to start off on page 1 of our meeting material, we have our fund condition statement. So this statement, in this statement, we are using FM11 projections. For current year, which is actually 2021, we projected our beginning balance of 4.8 or about $4.9 million. We have also projected revenue of about $2.3 million coming in. So we are tracking an overall projected FM11 expenditure of about $2.5 million. With that expenditure and revenue, we currently have a fund balance of about $4.8 million, which give you about 18.4 months in reserve. If you scroll down, you would be able to see that, please. And months in reserve meaning if you have no revenue coming in, you should be able to cover 18.4 months of expenses, and we have no immediate concern for the fund. Next document, can we go please to the next document? Thank you. So next document we have is on page 2 of our meeting materials, and it is our projected expenditure. In the projected expenditure document, you can see we are projecting about $741,000 in personnel services and about $1.8 million in OE&E expenses. We are showing a total of $2.5 million in total expenditure, which creates a saving of about $376,000 or about 13% in saving. We have no concern for the fund, and based on these projections, we look to be in good spot. I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions from the members?
President Armenta, this is Jed Grant. Could I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I was just curious, looking at the projected funds in reserve moving 2 to 3 years out, getting down to less than 12 months, down to 9 months. If you could remind me what the recommended months in reserve is, and also to advise if you think that 2 or 3 years from now that we might need to look at fee increase or something like that as we continue to spend more than we take in.
The manager for the budget shop over PAB. In regards to those questions, it's important to note that the fund condition expenditures are projected as fully expended. So that is if the board were to fully utilize all expenditure authority. There usually is a reversion amount, so those projections are relatively high. In reserve, it's usually a good idea to have 12 to 13 months. I hope that answers your question, but I can further elucidate if necessary.
I think that answers my question in that we should be around 12 to 13 and 9 is fairly close. And then if you're projecting on the high side that we will likely be around 12 or 13, did I understand that correctly?
That is correct, but we are projecting with full expenditures, which is it is a high estimate.
Great, thank you. That answered my question. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from members? All right, hearing none, let us, Madam Moderator, if you'd open public comment, please.
Moderator, members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. Simply click on the Q&A icon, type "I would like to make a public comment" in the ask field, and send it to all panelists. And when prompted, click the unmute me button. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please close it.
Thank you.
All right, very well. Moving right along to number 8, possible action on the new board logo. We can put this up for a vote after discussion. I think we progressed now to incorporate the prior suggestions, so I think we're in pretty good shape. But Ms. Vong, if you would go ahead and take us through that quickly.
Thank you, Juan. During the last board meeting on May 10th, Public Information Officer Michelle Cave presented the board with 3 logo options designed by the Office of Publication Design and Editing team. All 3 logos incorporated the stethoscope in its design. During discussion, board members suggested incorporating the rod of Asclepius or the caduceus using instead of a stethoscope to accurately reflect the high-level decision-making that PAs perform. Also, as PAs are closely related to the medical board, having the symbol of healing and recognizing that PAs work closely with physicians, that it would be good to have an imagery that represents that close relationship. The board made a motion to direct staff to direct the design logo team to propose new logos incorporating the rod of Asclepius or the caduceus. Staff met with the design team and discussed the suggestions made at the board meeting. The design team conducted research on both the rod of Asclepius and the caduceus. Only the rod of Asclepius is historically accurate as a representation of medicine. The design team moved forward with creating the new logos and incorporating this medical symbol. The new logos were then forwarded to board staff for vote. The top 2 logos were selected and are now incorporated with the previous 3 logos for review and consideration. So I would also like to share that there are currently 4 DCA entities using the rod of Asclepius or the caduceus in their logos. So let's review the logos. So the first option, logo option 1, shows the rod of Asclepius along with the initials for the board and the board's full name to the right. This is a simple and clean design with a single serpent circling the staff. As many healthcare entities use the rod of Asclepius in their logo as it represents medicine, the viewer just having the image and the acronym PAB may recognize this logo as a healthcare entity. So next slide, please. So logo option 2 also shows the rod of Asclepius, but with an oval background, along with the initials for the board and the board's full name down below. The background incorporated in this design gives the logo a more substantial look. Again, the viewer just having the image and the acronym PAB may recognize this logo as a healthcare entity. Next slide, please. Logo option 3 shows a stethoscope in the shape of a heart, along with the initials for the board and the board's full name down below. It is apparent that this logo is pertaining to healthcare providers using the heart and the stethoscope. If an individual who was not related to DCA or the board was looking at it, they might question what the logo is pertaining to. Next slide. So logo option 4, this is also apparent that it is pertaining to healthcare and is specifically on the individual being the giver of the healthcare. The logo shows a heart, but this time with the head making it out to be a person with a stethoscope. The logo is gender neutral. If the words physician assistant board were removed from the bottom and the viewer just had the image and the acronym PAB, the viewer could conclude that this has something to do with an individual providing healthcare. Next slide, please. Logo option 5 is more abstract because there is no person in the sense that it is an entity, not an individual. In this logo, there is the use of the stethoscope circling the cross. And the cross is used because it's a typical image that is often used in healthcare. So if the viewer were to only see the cross with the acronym, it might be hard to decipher if the logo is for the board or the name of a hospital, clinic, or an urgent care facility. So this concludes the update for the new physician assistant board logo.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, so let's open this up for discussion among the members. Since I'm on speaker, I'll go ahead and tell you what I think. I think we want to resolve this if we can today. We don't really need to spend a whole lot of more board resources, staff resources on this by going back for further revision. So I'm hopeful we can choose from today. My personal favorites out of these are 1 and 5, but I'd like to hear everybody else's input on this.
I would like to chime in as well. When looking at older historical information, the rod of Asclepius is seen early on. So I like the first one, and it also seems to be consistent with historical physician assistant records. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Any other comments?
Hi, this is Jed Grant. I like option 1.
Well, this is great. We seem to be gathering a consensus here. Dr. Alexander, I know Dr. Hawkins, you don't vote, but what do you think? And Dr. Alexander, I'd like to hear your comments as well.
I was partial to 1 and 4. I thought, if the new look was established that showed some sort of humanity or compassion, the stethoscope with the around the person's neck looks appropriate, but I can go at 1 too.
Diego, what do you think?
Hi, so I'm partial to 1 and 4. 1 preferably, I think is a little more appropriate.
All right, very well. Well, we seem to have navigated this well. We have seems like a consensus. So let me make the motion to adopt logo option 1 and ask if there's any second to do that. Yes?
I'm sorry. If the board members adopt a logo, they will have to choose either color option A or B.
Oh, okay. Well, let me withdraw that motion. What do people think about color options A or B?
I like color options. Hi, this is Sonia Early. I like color option A with the white background and the black lettering or the black color.
Any other comments? Does that sound acceptable? Option A or any views that B is preferable?
This is Jed Grant. I just want some clarification when she says color option A or B. Is that only referring to the colored portions of the logo?
Yes.
I think that was low audio, but I think you said yes. So the black and white ones would be the same no matter what. You're just asking for either the purple lettering or the basically the blue lettering. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, Jed. The black and white during the design is what the design team will provide to the board, how it looks in black and white. But we do have to choose either color options A or B, either the blue and the more maroon color or the purple and more maroon color.
So just so
Great,
that
thank you. I'm sorry, Sonia, I didn't mean to step on you. I've like a weird delay, I think. So anyway, I like color option A.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure, thank you, Jed. I just wanted to make sure the first on the left with the black lettering and the white background, is that letter A? And then the right next to it on the right, is that B? Or is the whole first half A and the second half with the coloring B?
So the color options are below the black and white.
Right, but I'm saying in terms of color, so is A all the black and white, the white and the black, and then the black and the white? Is that all A?
No, A is actually the blue staff with the snake
Okay.
and the maroon acronym, and B would be the purple staff with the
I
snake
see.
and the maroon
Okay.
acronym. I know the A and B, the lettering is really small, so I apologize for that.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. I can barely, thank you for mentioning that. I can barely see it now. Okay. So if you want the black and white at the top, that doesn't have any A or B.
No, the black and white is not an option. It's just the design team provide that just to let the board members see how it, during the design, that's what it looks. And then when the color is applied to the logo, then you
Oh,
would see
I
the
see.
options on the bottom.
So Sonia, this is Rosanna. You just have to select the color. The black and white, white and black is something that you will be provided as far as on some documents. If it's a colorless logo, this is what it'll look like on that document. So you're not voting on that, just the color options A and B.
Okay. All right. We're voting on the color options. So, okay. All right. Okay, great.
Yeah, right. So if it's a black and white document, that just comes out of a black and white laser printer, it's going to be that
Black and white. Okay.
Yeah, but when it's a color production, website or it comes out of a color printer, then it would be A, B. So,
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
so it sounds like we have a consensus around A as well. So let me present the motion then to adopt logo option 1A. Is there anybody that would like to second that?
Sonia,
This
early
is
on.
Jed. Okay, Sonia, you can have it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can have it. You're a little delayed, like you said. No problem.
All right, let's put the second in for Jed there, please. And Ms. Gompers, if you'd call the vote.
Charles Alexander, Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza,
Aye.
and that calls the vote.
Well, I think we should have opened that for public comment. Should we not have, Will, before the vote?
And I lost the connection there for a moment, but I think we had the vote without public comment. Is that what occurred?
Yes. So should we open it for public comment
Well,
first? And revote?
we probably should have public comment and then just revote. Just to
Okay, let's
clean
do
the
that.
record.
All right. Let's keep the record straight. Let's go ahead and do that. Open it up for public comment, if you would, Madam Moderator.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type "I would like to make a public comment" and send it to all panelists. When prompted, click the Unmute Me button. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please call it, and I'll go ahead and make that motion again to adopt 1A. Jed, do you still second that motion?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Gompers, if you would recall the vote, please.
Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Sonia Early, Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza. And that completes the vote.
Okay, we did it this time correctly. Sorry about that, Will, and sorry about that, board. Again, now I know why Jed always had that sign in front of him.
Yeah, and just terminology. I think someone said that it completes the vote. That is true, but it would be helpful for, especially since we're remote, just to announce whether the motion passes or fails. So in this case, it motion carried or passed.
Okay, very well. So I'll go ahead and state that the motion passed by unanimous vote. Thank you, Will. All right, so let's move to the next item, which is Dr. Hawkins' report on medical board. Dr. Hawkins, if you would, please.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Great, great. So we're aware the last PA board quarterly meeting was on May 10th, 2021. Activities since or surrounding that date included the following. On May 13th and 14th, the medical board meeting was held virtually. I was elected vice president of the medical board at the May 14th, 2021 meeting. 4 governor-appointed members of the medical board had Senate confirmation hearings on May 5th and were subsequently approved by the legislature. I was among those confirmed for reappointment to the medical board. June 24th, the medical board held a special meeting focusing on the postgraduate training license. On July 29th, the medical board held a special public stakeholder meeting. The next medical board quarterly meeting is August 18th and 19th. Please review the agenda at the board website, but I draw particular attention to a presentation on August 19th around 9 a.m. Substance abuse healing arts licensing, substance abusing healing arts. Although it's directed toward physicians, it's instructive for all medical practitioners. That there's an ability to let PA members and staff know about this is worth seeing. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins, and congratulations on your reappointment and election to vice presidency. That's great. We're glad you're aboard to help us do our jobs better.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator, would you open it for public comment? Any comments on, well, let me ask the board first. Any comments or questions of Dr. Hawkins before we open it for public comment?
Early, I'd just like to say congratulations on your reappointment and becoming vice president of the board, the medical board. Congrats.
Thank you all.
Yeah, this is Dr. Alexander. I too would like to congratulate Dr. Hawkins for his appointment as vice president and reappointment to the medical board as well. Congratulations.
Great, terrific. Thank you, members. Madam Moderator, if you'd open for public comment, please.
Members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. Simply click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type, I would like to make a public comment in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. And when prompted, click the Unmute Me button. So I'm going to pause for a moment to allow members of the public time to access the feature. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very well. Item 10 is discussion of possible action to initiate rulemaking to amend Title 16 CCR 1399.515, return from retired status to include fingerprint requirement. That'll be either a staff member, Halbo, or Dylan. So please proceed.
I believe that's me, Karen Halbo, and there was a change in the law in 2018 that changed that when someone is in a license status, like retired license status, that they can't have an active license, that all the boards have to notify the Department of Justice. When you do fingerprinting, there's a long tail to it, and that they report any subsequent arrests or convictions. There's certain material they will send. And I think they were trying to reduce the amount of information they've had to send for people who are not active licensees and not likely to ever be active licensees. But Rosanna pointed out that if we have someone who wants to come back from retired license status, we don't have information on them. So we need to put into the application to return to active practice a requirement that they provide fingerprints. And that's described in some detail in the memo. And then you can see the language that we would add to the regulation so that they are required to provide us with a fingerprint when they go from retired to active. And it may be you don't actually get anybody who does that, but you want it in place so that if someone does choose to come back, you get a report as to any of the criminal activities that you want to know about before you let somebody renew their license.
Very well, thank you, Ms. Halbo. Comments from members?
This is Jed. I think this is a great idea, and I appreciate the hard work of the board staff, especially executive officer, for bringing it to us as something to consider.
Yes, thank you, Jed. I agree. This is a little hole in there that, as Karen points out, might not ever occur, but if it does, we certainly want to be informed and not have this little loophole, if you will, in there. So that's great work identifying that potential issue. Okay, so any other comments from members?
I would like to chime in and agree as well. This is great, and I think it does close a loophole. So congrats and hats off.
Yeah, you know, and it's a dangerous loophole at that, because it's one we would never know about if it did happen and there was the unusual circumstance of somebody convicted of some type of a criminal activity that would concern us and then comes back from retired status. We'd never even find out about it. So this is great work. Okay, if there's no other comments, I suppose we should open this for public comment. Madam Moderator, if you would, please.
Members of the public, I am opening up the Q&A feature. The instructions are on the screen. Just simply click the Q&A icon, type I would like to make a public comment in the Ask field, and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So the action requested of us is to consider a motion to approve the regulatory text that is in the materials and to direct the staff to submit to the director of the DCA and Business Consumer Services and the Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process and make non-substantive changes to the package. And if no comments are received within the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorizing the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at section 1399.515 as noticed. Would anybody like to make that motion?
Juan, it's Jed. I'll make the motion as you read it.
Thank you, sir.
Early second.
They can adopt based on what they've read in the memo.
Okay. So we've already completed public comment. We now have a motion on the table and seconded. Ms. Gompers, could you please call the vote?
Charles Alexander, Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza, and that completes the motion.
Thank you. So the motion carries by unanimous vote. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Karen. Let us move on now to the next section, section 11, consideration and possible action on comments received on April 12th, 2021 from Professional Boundaries Education regarding the proposal to amend 16 CCR 1399.16, implicit bias in continuing medical education. Karen, is this yours as well?
And with the memo, we have the email that was received during the public comment period from Catherine Caldecott. And if you take a look at it, she's asking about, you know, is this regulation restricting a number of their courses? And this was something of a confounding comment, because when you read what she's saying and you look at what's required, she's asking us to define in greater detail something that's straight out of the statutory language. And putting definitions into regulations can be very challenging, and I don't recommend that the board try to define beyond what the legislature has provided. Direct patient care, generally discussing the face-to-face contact with patients. And it's like she did read it exactly backwards. But I don't think that her misunderstanding or concern is giving the board reason to go back in and change the rulemaking. The rulemaking is fairly straightforward. And so we have the discussion, and the suggested response that we would then put in the final statement of reasons is that the language comes directly from the statute. The board is simply implementing the statute, and that her comment doesn't seem to really, you know, that maybe that really wasn't something she had a lot of time to think about, or because sometimes this happens. I've read things and I realize I've read it exactly reverse. But the idea is that the CME courses that are required by the statute would involve direct patient care. And as all PAs know, there is a lot of work that's not direct patient care, with taking care of records and other things. And that the courses, you have to use a reasonable interpretation of what the simple language is. I think you would really go down a rabbit hole if you tried to do greater definition of the words that are already in the statute. So the recommendation from legal was that you adopt the response in the memo as the reason why the board has chosen not to make a change, and that the language is clear, it comes from the statute, and the board believes that most folks can read that and understand it, and to move forward with the rulemaking.
Great, thank you, Karen. Let me, I'm going to ask for member comments, but let me state that I totally agree with Karen that where a statute has already and regulations are already enacted, generally it's a very slippery slope to try to re-engineer from a statutory interpretation standpoint those definitions what the legislature intended. I think that is actually beyond any board's purview once these things are already in place. So I think I agree that's a dangerous slope to go down. Any other comments? All right. Hearing none, the action requested in the memo from Karen is to a motion to reject the public comment received during the 45-day period, as you can see in the materials, and make directions to the executive officer to make the changes. Before we put that motion forward, let's open this for public comment, Madam Moderator.
President Armenta?
Yes.
It's a lawyer's job to be picky. Could you actually read the motion when you're ready to have it moved from here? Because my suggestion is not to actually change the language, but to leave the language as is. And we just did what Ms. Caldecott did and read it backwards by accident. So, but it doesn't, you're going to do that after the public comment, but do please read the language exactly. Thank you.
I will read the action requested precisely, exactly.
And when you get two lawyers in there, you get two opinions. So this is Will, and my opinion is not different, just that we should probably, it's preferable to have the motion first and then public comment so the members of the public can actually know what the motion is that they're commenting on.
All right, let me read that then precisely. So the action will be requested and the motion will be, as stated, to reject the public comment received during the 45-day comment period and adopt the response provided above for inclusion in the final statement of reasons. The board is also asked to direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including filing of the final rulemaking package with the OAL, and authorize the executive officer to make any technical or non-substantive changes to the proposed regulations before completing the rulemaking process and adopt the proposed amendments to 16 CCR 1399.616 as noticed. So that will be the formal motion. And now, Will, I suppose we can open it for public comment, correct?
Was there a second? So I think President Armenta is the motioner here, or was there a separate motioner?
I'll make that. I was making the motion.
Okay, very well. Yeah, then let's open it for public comment with the second.
Okay. Madam Moderator, if you'd open it for public comment, please.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. Simply click the Q&A icon, type I would like to make a public comment, and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please call that or close that. And Ms. Gompers, if you would proceed to call the vote.
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Sonia Early, Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza. And that calls it.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the motion carries by unanimous votes. Thank you very much. And that concludes that item. All right, very well. So the next item is the update and possible action on pending regulatory packages. And I think, Karen, that's you again, is it not?
I think I was hoping that Jasmine might do that one, but I can take a look at the materials and be able to try to do what I can.
Do we not have Jasmine today?
No, I'm here, but Karen, if you could just go ahead and do that one for me.
Okay.
I didn't know that I was supposed to do that today.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just as you can see, it's tiny print, and so I'm having that. Can I make this much bigger so that I can actually address it with some reasonable usefulness? Oh Lord. Okay. Let's see. Well, hopefully it's in your materials. You're able to see it a little bit better. Your 2138. Had an effective date of 2020, so that one's completed. And in case you're wondering why the completed are being left on, I believe it's a part of the tracking that the director's office is using to see how things are moving forward for the regulation unit that's trying to be helpful and get these things through. I'm going to pause for just a second and see if I can pull this up on my other computer, because it's really literally too small for me to read, and I won't be in the order that you have on here. Let's see. Okay, and I got it on the big computer.
Karen, while you're pulling that up, this is Jed. I think it's interesting when we see the ones that are totally done from the time that the documents were submitted or the regulatory text was approved to the time that it was effective. It's like exactly 2 years.
Yeah. It's I don't know, as reg counsel, I'm always telling people it really is a taking, slow process, but some of that is making sure that there's lots of time for thoughtful review and that the public has its opportunity to give input. The fact that our regulations involve public input is what differentiates the democracy from other governments, where they just make rules and you don't know why or how and you don't get to complain about them. All right, so our second one after the AB 2138 on the list is the required actions against sex offenders. We had a 45-day comment period, and I believe Jasmine is busy getting the final documents to me, and then it goes through the director and the agency, and we will submit it to OAL. That is one I am certainly planning to have finished by the end of this year, and hopefully well before the end of this year. Next, we have the renewal of license and CME package. And let's see, I've got that. On the list. Not sure if we were working on checking the language or just getting our final documents together. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's getting reviewed by legal right now. That's with legal and then moves forward into the director and to agency. And on implicit bias curriculum, that one you've been through the public comment period, and Jasmine is getting the documents together to submit. It goes to legal, then director, then to agency, and gets filed the final documents with OAL. Our next one, we have the SB 697 implementation, and we split that into two packages, the one that needed to get review from the med board and a second that was just basically not about PA practice, but changing applications, updating exams, having these things reflect the 697 changes. And at this time, the larger package with the more substantive issues, we are in dialogue with your major stakeholder, CAPA, and I believe that there'll be a meeting with them to take some input. They had some more concerns about the language even after it was approved with the med board, and it is very useful to hear and see what they have to say and what their citations are and all that, and to give the board an opportunity to consider, do we want to make some of those changes before we go into the total rulemaking process and have public comment, or just make sure that it's well thought through before you go to notice. So that particular package is going to have some more discussion about the language itself with the major stakeholder and really examine what it is that they have concerns about. Having worked in regulations for years, I must say it is surprising the things you can see on a third or a fourth reading. I don't know why it works that way, but it does. Then the next package with the exams, applications, and that we just need to have staff get the initial notice documents together, but that is a lower priority than finishing those two packages that are ready to go final. So that's on Jasmine's to-do list, but it's not as high up. And then let's see, the uniform standards, that's still being worked on, staff to get the language together. And retired status is to include the fingerprint requirement. We've gotten that just voted on now. And so Jasmine can put together the initial documents to submit for getting it out for public comment. So the last two are the newer packages that can move forward. But first, let's wrap up the two that are close to final. They've been through the public comment period, and we just need to get those documents reviewed and into the Office of Administrative Law. And yes, I can take questions because I have it big enough to read on my other screen.
Okay, let's do indeed just that. Any member questions?
This is Jed. I just had a question on the discussions with the implementation of the 697 stuff that the medical board has already approved. If we change the language, the first question is, if we change the language, does it have to go back to med board? And the second question is, are those going to be closed discussions with just board leadership, or is that something we'll have in an open board meeting, or how will that work?
I believe that if the board votes to make changes, we would get the med board to approve it again. But that the initial meetings were just with board leadership to hear what they have to say and understand their reasoning. I am not prejudiced either that changes would be made or not be made, but if changes are not made, I want to understand the issues so that the board has a full view of the ramifications and the concerns. So it's not that, oh, we're definitely going to change everything, but let's be as informed as possible. And by having the meetings and talking into the weeds on those things, we'll have that information. So that was the intent of getting together and meeting with the stakeholders, is to truly understand their position. Once we do publish it, it may have things they don't like and they will send it out in a public comment. But now you have the opportunity to without as much fuss, figure out if maybe the board wants to consider their other additional points and where are there points that are good or bad. It's not uncommon to meet with major stakeholders before actually sending it out for public comment. Have them do some of the work.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to, say that we didn't want to meet with them ahead of time. I think the legislature was clear that they want us to do that when we did our hearing in November. And I think we've tried to work with CAPA a lot on this from the very beginning. I was just more asking about how the process worked in terms of how much is done at public meetings and how much behind the scenes, and whether or not it had to go back to med board.
Yes, thanks, Jed. And in fact, the president of the CAPA and I have had discussions. I know Rosanna and Sonia are in the loop on this as well. I think Will, to perhaps have a future stakeholders meeting with board leadership to get their continuing input, and they've agreed to do that. We haven't scheduled it yet, but it's something that that is anticipated happening. So we should be able to hit that, and we'll see what that produces. And as Karen says, if we do make changes, of course, they'll go back to med board, but if we don't, then they'll still have the public comment option before we adopt. All right, any other member comments? Okay, let's open this then for public comment, please.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. Simply click on the Q&A icon, type "I would like to make a comment" in the Ask field, and send it to all panelists. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please close it. All right, very well. I think that concludes item 12, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Karen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Very well. Let's move on to item 13, which is the educational workforce. Sorry, my dog, we're in a hotel room. My dog is acting up, so that's his vote. The Education and Workforce Development Advisory Committee, an update on physician education program and applicants in California by Dr. Grant or Vice President Alexander. I'm not sure who's going to do that today.
Dr. Alexander, do you want me to do it, or did you want to do it? Do you have a preference?
Judd, go ahead and do it.
Go ahead and do it.
You're very versed at this.
Very versed at this. Okay, thanks. So there just in terms of change from the last board meeting that was held, there's not been a huge change within our state. The accreditation group only meets a couple of times a year, and they met just before our last meeting. So some of their decisions weren't totally published yet. So this document today represents the most updated version of the accreditation decisions that have been made. So there's 273 PA programs across the country. And we have 17 accredited programs in California with 4 programs in development. And so those developing programs are at various states along the pathway to becoming accredited and admitting students, and then having continued accreditation. So when you're looking at this chart, what this means is if it says developing, for example, the first one, A.T. Still University on the Central Coast, the developing programs means that they have met with the accrediting body and stated their intent to take students. Some of them may be working on accepting their first class. And then once that first class matriculates, or just before they matriculate, the accrediting body will grant them provisional accreditation. And that means that they've put students into seats and they're teaching in the first 5 years of their program. So they may have had 3 or 4 classes graduate and they still have provisional accreditation. And then when there's nothing written after the program's name, then they are have what's called continued accreditation, and that can be awarded for up to 10 years. Although the programs submit an annual report to their accrediting body, the accreditation visits can vary anywhere from 1 or 2 years all the way out to 10 years between visits, depending on the program's demonstrated compliance and how their annual reports are going. The colors represent where the programs are located, and you can see that there's sort of a geographic maldistribution in the Southern California areas. Lots of programs there. There's a lot of population there, and so that's why. But it does, California is a big state, and we have lots of people in rural areas that are underserved, just as we have lots of people in urban areas that are underserved. And the reason that where the programs are located is important is because the PA training, the first 12 to 14 months are didactic. It's modeled after medical school training. And so they're in a classroom for the first 12 to 14 months. And then the next 12 to 14 months, depending on the length of the program, they are out on clinical rotations, which are often near the schools. Some of the schools have rotations that are all over the state or all over the country, in fact, but many of them have rotations that are geographically within a few hundred miles of the school. And we know that there's a subset of the number of students on those rotations that will be offered jobs, and they'll remain in those areas. So if we have PA training programs and schools that have clinical rotations within California, particularly in areas that are underserved or rural where it's hard to place providers, and those providers are offered jobs in those areas, the PA students that are about to graduate are offered jobs in those areas, then we're likely to help meet the workforce needs for healthcare in those areas. And so that's why we are having this discussion and why this report is on here with the different colors and showing where the schools are located so that we can sort of see where we're likely to see some of our homegrown sort of PAs return to practice, at least sort of trying to predict this a little bit. Now, this doesn't include out-of-state folks that get a job here, and they certainly, PAs move around, but it does give us an idea of where we are placing a lot of our graduates are likely to find work. The numbers that you see there are the number of seats per class. So most programs have 2 to 3 classes attending at one time. So you have the first year students, the second year students, and then the average length of a program is 27 to 28 months. And so you also have some third year students that are floating around. But the numbers that you see are the number of students per class. So for example, the first one you see there, AT Still University, I'm not quite sure how long their program is going to be, but at any given time, once they're fully operational, they may have 300 students in their program, even though each class has 100 students in the seat. These numbers are hard to find in some cases. There was a website that had them all listed, but with the pandemic, they took that listing down because they felt like it was not very accurate. And so I really want to give a thanks to Ms. Gompers, who helped us find a lot of these numbers. It was a little bit difficult for me from across the world to find them, so she did a lot of research. But there are some that we just couldn't find, particularly in developing programs. It can be a little bit difficult to figure out how many students they're planning on taking. And so that's why there's a question mark there. And the asterisk means that for the numbers calculation on the bottom of the page, we have basically said that we're just going to use the average class size, which is 45, 46 to calculate what we think the number of students in California is going to be. Just assuming that, using an average number, even though the program may have more or less students than that. So these numbers at the bottom, the 884 is an accurate number right now of currently accredited programs, how many students are graduating every year if they don't have any attrition. And then by 2022, if many of these developing programs come online, that will increase almost 200 to 1,019. And so this is important just to know, every year we have 1,000 new providers. So all of those folks, if they stay in California, are going to need to be licensed. And then we have people coming in from out of state as well. Currently, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that there's an expected 31% growth in the PA profession in the next 10 years. So we can expect that we will continue to have growth in PA programs and growth in PA applicants for licensure in California. So I think it's prescient that the board has, as part of the strategic plan, increased the size of our board to make a reasonable workload for our staff. And pleased to see that those changes are finally coming to fruition. They've been a long time coming. And just recognition to the board staff for their hard work in years past. And I know they're still working hard to get all these folks licensed. The last thing that I'll cover before questions is that there are a couple of programs on probation. That can be for any number of things. The accrediting body lists probation just as not being in compliance with accreditation requirements. There are hundreds of accreditation requirements, and the typical accreditation packet is thousands of pages long. So many times programs will have various minor citations. Usually if a program is on probation, it's because there's significant concern about the program's ability to maintain the educational standard that the accrediting body is requiring. And so they usually work pretty hard to get off probation. Those two programs on probation now, I'm sure we'll be working to get off that. And you may recall that there was another program that was on probation before that has now cleared and is no longer on probation. So that's a good thing. So hopefully that gives you some information about kind of what we're looking at in terms of our workforce moving forward into the future, as well as what the educational program picture looks like within California. And I'm happy to answer any questions that board members of the public may have.
Well, first of all, let me apologize in introducing both of you. I was distracted by my dog who you heard bark, and I think I called Jed Dr. Grant and Dr. Alexander, Vice President Alexander. So let me apologize for that. But hey, thanks, Jed, for this report. Do you think we're meeting capacity? Is there anything that we should be doing to in your view, especially your academic background, in your view, is there anything we should be doing more, or does this match up with trend lines you expect and for the future?
I think it's important that the board not be a barrier to licensure or to PA practice within the state, which can be, that there can be a fine line there. And that's why I think it's so important that we continue to work with a professional organization within California. As you know, we have to protect the public, but we also don't want to be a barrier to practice. So things like what Julie was talking about with licensing timeframes and all of those things, I think, are helpful in sort of monitoring how we're doing with making sure that we get people licensed in a timely fashion, and that also that we're protecting the public by monitoring PA practice within California. I think for me, having these numbers available and knowing the healthcare needs of our state, I think it's important that we appropriately staff the board and write, regulations to make sure that these folks that are coming to practice in the state can get in and see patients and do so safely. And so if several years ago we made the strategic plan where we basically doubled the number of people, the number of staff in the PA board, and knew that we were going to have to move to a bigger office, and it was a big bite to take, and it was a little bit scary, but have done really well with that, particularly with Rosanna's leadership. So I think we've done what we can to this point to help make sure that we're getting people licensed timely and getting them out there to practice safely and ensuring safe practice of PAs within California, and doing what we can to support access to care.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jed. That's a good report. Any other comments from members?
Yeah, I just might want to add that this growth in PA programs is really parallel to the growth in the number of students interested in the PA profession. Being at UCLA, I actually see a number of pre-med students reconsidering going into medicine from the physician side to looking at the PA programs that are popping up in the state. I think another thing too is this information on our website, because I think when students are looking for or looking at the PA profession, it'd be good to have this information on our website so that they know where all these programs are located as well.
Maybe Rosanna can speak to.
Dr. Alexander, are you asking if we have these programs on our website? Which PA programs?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we list PA programs on our website.
Yes, we
good
do.
Information.
Yes, we do. We have PA programs. We have under the applicants tab on our website. There's a selection. There's from it's from and Julie, you can chime in. Sorry, I just have to go to that website real quick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other member comments? All right, very well. Let's, Madam Moderator, if you'd open up for public comment, please.
Moderator, members of the public, the instructions are on your screen. Type I would like, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen, and then type I would like to make a comment in the ask field and send it to all panelists. And no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Very well. That brings us to item 14. Thanks again, Jed and Dr. Alexander. That's a great report. Item number 14 is a report by the Legislative Committee, discussion and possible action to consider positions regarding specified legislation. And I think that is either Vice President Early, we know Jennifer's not here, or Karen. So whichever of you is going to do that, please proceed.
Actually, Jasmine will be presenting.
Yes, this is Jasmine. I will be presenting the legislative update report. Can you all hear me okay?
Clear.
Perfect. All right, so item number 14A is SB 48, Medi-Cal Annual Cognitive Health Assessment, which has been renamed. The board at the May 10th, 2021 meeting chose to maintain its opposed unless amended position and directed staff to inform the author's office of this position with a letter stating that the bill would requesting that the bill would only apply to those physician assistant licensees who practice in a specialty where dementia would be a common finding, such as geriatric, internal medicine, or primary care. However, this letter was sent, but then on May 28th, 2021, the bill was amended to incorporate the board's request that it apply to those physician assistant licensees who practice in a specialty where dementia would be a common finding. And then on June 21st, 2021, the bill was actually amended to delete any reference to the physician assistant board and its continuing education requirements. And today, as the bill reads, the bill actually expands the schedule of benefits to include an annual cognitive health assessment for Medi-Cal beneficiaries who are 65 years of age or older if they are otherwise ineligible for a similar assessment as part of an annual wellness visit under the Medicare program. So this bill was completely amended and does not refer to the physician assistant board or its continuing education requirements any longer. So no longer applies to our board, but just wanted to give that update. And then if the board and or staff have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this bill, please go ahead.
It sounds like we don't need to worry about D48, correct? 48, correct?
Correct. We do not need to worry about this bill anymore.
Okay. Okay.
This is Jed. I wonder if since the bill doesn't really apply to us anymore, we should remove our opposed position, just so that we don't cause problems for the author. We could change to a watch position or something like that.
That makes sense. Any other member comments?
I apologize for interrupting. Just a friendly reminder to please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Otherwise, you'll hear that echoing that you're hearing now. So I just muted a microphone. Thank you, and you may continue. I apologize for interrupting.
No problem. Any other board comments on that? Okay, well, would this be subject to a vote if we amend our position from opposed to simply watch or no position?
Yes, I suppose it would. Generally, if we're taking a watch position, that doesn't require a vote. But since we already have a position on record, I think perhaps the staff could probably use some direction too, as far as should they, send a further communication to the author's office to let them know they're removing that? Because otherwise, it's sort of an empty gesture if we don't let the author know that. So yeah, a board vote would be appropriate to direct staff to reach out to the author's office to let them know we've removed our opposed position at this time.
Okay, so I'm going to make the motion that we amend, withdraw our opposition position and change it to watch only, and that we direct staff to issue that communique to the author's office so that they're aware of our change in position. Would anybody like to second that motion?
Sonia Early.
Thank you, Sonia. Let's open it up to public comment, please, Madam Moderator.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, the instructions are on the screen. Simply click on the Q&A icon, type "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please close that feature. And on the motion that is pending, Ms. Gompers, if you would call the vote, please.
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Sonia Early, Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza.
Aye.
That completes it.
Thank you. So the motion carries by unanimous vote. Okay, Jasmine, I guess AB 29 is next.
Correct. So moving on to item 14B, AB 29, labeled State Bodies Meetings. At its May 10th, 2021 meeting, the board chose to maintain its watch position. And since then, there has been no change to this bill. As it reads, there's three main provisions of this bill. This bill would require that notice to include all writings or materials provided for the notice meeting to a member of the state body by the staff of a state agency, board, or commission, or another member of the state body that are in connection with the matter subject to discussion or consideration at the meeting. It would also require those writings or materials be made available on the state body's internet website and to any person who requests the writings or materials in writing on the same day as the dissemination of the writings and materials to members of the state body, or at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting, whichever is earlier. And then finally, this bill would prohibit a state body from discussing those writings or materials or from taking action on an item to which those writings or materials pertain at a meeting of the state body unless the state body has complied with these provisions. So like I said, there have been no amendments since the last meeting. But if board or staff would like to discuss this bill further, please go ahead.
Well, this sounds like one where we don't need to do anything if we're maintaining our watch position. Any other board member comments? All right, hearing none, Jasmine, why don't you take us to item C?
Alrighty, so item 14C, AB 107, Department of Consumer Affairs Board's temporary licenses, military spouses. This bill is located in the Senate Committee on Military and Veteran Affairs. This bill requires all the boards under DCA to issue a temporary license to practice a profession or vocation to an applicant after appropriate investigation if they meet the following requirements. They have to be married to or in a domestic partnership of legal union with an active duty member of the U.S. Armed Forces who is assigned to active duty in this state. They must hold a current, active, and unrestricted license to practice the same profession in another state or territory of the U.S. They should submit an application to the board, including a signed affidavit attesting that they meet all of the requirements for the temporary license. It must also include written verification from the original licensing jurisdiction stating that their license is in good standing. Further, they cannot have committed any act that would have constituted grounds for denial, suspension, or revocation of the license under California law. They also must not have been disciplined by another licensing entity or be the subject of an unresolved complaint, review, or disciplinary proceeding by another licensing entity. Further, they must provide fingerprints upon request by a board, and the board shall request a fingerprint-based criminal history information check from the Department of Justice in accordance with Subdivision U of Section 11105 of the Penal Code, and the Department of Justice shall furnish state or federal criminal history information in accordance with Subdivision P of Section 11105 of the Penal Code. Further, they must pass a California law and ethics examination if the board requires one. And finally, this bill requires that a temporary license expires 12 months after issuance, upon issuance of an expedited license, a standard license, or a license by endorsement, whichever occurs first. As written, the bill requires that to obtain a temporary license, the military spouse must hold a current license in the same profession in another state. However, there are some items to be concerned about, as the bill does not require that the licensing requirements in the other state in which the person holds a license be substantially equivalent to the requirements in California. Also, the bill does not require that the clinical exam be passed to issue the temporary license. It also does not require that the applicant's degree be from an accredited or an approved educational system as required by California. And also that the denial of a permanent license would invalidate a temporary license. So these are things that are not included in the bill. And each applicant's education and experience is examined by the board licensing evaluator during the review of an application currently, but by passing this review could jeopardize consumer protection. So that's all I have on this bill. And if the board or staff would like to discuss or address any issues or concerns, please go ahead.
Okay, we have a board position of watch, so any comments that would prompt us to change from that watch position, members?
Hey, this is Jed. I do have a little bit of concerns with this. One is that it says the original licensing state. So I don't see anything that covers this if they have licenses in multiple states. Say they're licensed in 3 or 4 states, and they give you one state license that's good, and maybe they have something else going on in another state. My main really concern with this whole thing is twofold. One, being a current member of the military, most of the time, permanent change of station orders come out quite a ways in advance, usually 8 to 10 months in advance, which would give them enough time to be licensed under our current system, especially since we already expedite them. And two, it leaves lots of opportunity for loopholes that we need to close if the bill passes. So my thought would be that we maybe send a letter to the author expressing these concerns, and maybe take a support if amended position. I think this is a good thing to support, but they need to tighten up the language to an extent that ensure that that they're meeting the same requirements that they would in California, and that if they don't, then they have to. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense to me to do that, to send that letter explaining the concern, the loopholes. Any other comments? Will, do we need a vote to direct staff to issue a letter to the author expressing our concerns, or is that something we can just do by advice to staff?
If it's simply advice to staff, I'm fine with it being just sort of the consensus of the board with public comment. But if it is, as Jed referred to, perhaps a support if amended position, which is a little more formal, a vote would be better. It's still in the, up to the preference of yourself, Mr. President, which route you want to go. Maybe it requires a little more further board discussion, and if staff has any input, maybe Rosanna or Jasmine might have thoughts if they've previously spoken with the author of this bill or not, what kind of relationship we have with them, if it can be more casual or more formal.
That sounds like it's a good question for Jasmine. What do you think, Jasmine? Is simply a letter going to get enough horsepower to have a look at this, or do you think we need a formalized motion? And I guess, as Will indicates, it's really dependent on how receptive this author is to our input.
I have had discussions with the author's staff. They were pretty receptive, but they did make the amendments to the bill recently that require that a fingerprint-based criminal history check from the DOJ be furnished. And also, they did include that, the act that any act that was committed by the applicant cannot be constituted as grounds for denial, suspension, or revocation of the license under California law. But if we, really want to push them to, make a change possibly, then maybe a formal letter might be stronger.
What are your thoughts, Jed? You brought the issue up, so let me ask you to express what your thoughts are by way of simply a letter or by a motion that might carry a little more weight.
I think it's fine. Just I think we have to be careful about the optics on this, and we always want to support veterans and their spouses and make it as easy as possible for them to work if they have a permanent change of station to our state. But I do think it would be good to send a letter. I don't think we necessarily have to change our position, but I do think we should send a letter saying, like, hey, there's exams for licensure and things like that. Can we try and include some of those things? That's my thought.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right on the optics, on the veteran optics. Okay, so let's. I think this legislation is going to take a while, so I think it's not going to be done by November, certainly. So let's just take a pulse. Does everybody believe that by consensus, a letter, we should ask staff to address the concerns that Jed, and just take it from there and see how that resolves? Dr. Alexander, what do you think?
Better like that.
Yeah, what do you think?
Hi, I'm not sure if someone's speaking, but this is Sonia Early. I would support a letter as well.
Diego, are you in agreement? Okay, so Rosanna, by consensus, and Jasmine, let's work up a letter to the author to, as Jed says, kind of be gentle with this, but raise those points that Jed mentioned, please.
Sounds good. And would we choose to keep the watch position, or would the board like to go with the supportive amended position?
Well, I think we should probably just leave it at watch and see what kind of return input we get from a letter. Does that make sense to everybody?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree also. And I think those 4 bullet points that you have there, that what the bill does not require. I think those are a good, if you want to just put those in the letter and say, hey, these are, the main concerns of the PA board, because I'm sure other boards have similar concerns.
Diego?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so Jasmine, there you have it. Let's leave it at watch and issue a letter along the specifications that the Jed laid out. Okay, I think that brings us now to D, which is AB 646, right?
Correct. So item 14D, AB 646, Department of Consumer Affairs Board's expunged convictions. At its May 10th, 2021 meeting, the board took a watch position. This is a 2-year bill located in the Assembly Committee on Business, Professions, and Consumer Protection. AB 646 would require programs under DCA that post information on its website about a revoked license due to a criminal conviction to post notification of an expungement within 90 days of the board receiving an expungement order related to the conviction for those who reapply for licensure or are relicensed. Additionally, the bill would require boards on receiving an expungement order to remove the initial posting on its website that the person's license was revoked and information regarding arrests, charges, and convictions if the person is not currently licensed and does not reapply for licensure. This bill applies to all expungement orders regardless of the conviction. However, the bill applies to former licensees that did not have the option for probation. In addition, the former licensee may not practice in the field that they were formerly licensed. So this bill, as we had discussed at the last board meeting, there was a question of whether this would apply to licenses that are under probation. And I was in contact with the author staff, and they said that it would not apply to licenses that are under probation status. So if the board and staff would like to discuss this bill further, please go ahead.
All right, any comments?
This is Jed. I don't have any major problem with this bill. If the licensee has completed their probation and received an expungement, I don't see any reason to leave that stuff out there, for the public to see. They've taken care of what they needed to do and they're practicing safely now. I don't, as long as they've completed their probation and everything is done, I don't see it. And, they've had it expunged through the courts. I don't see why we would want to keep it up there, or, that it would hurt anything to take it down.
Okay, that speaks to keeping our watch position. Anybody have any other comments or any reasons to change from a watch position? All right, hearing none, I suppose we'll just leave that at the watch position. Jasmine, item E, please.
All right, so item 14E, SB 731, Criminal Records Relief. At its May 10th, 2021 meeting, the board chose to take an oppose unless amended position. This bill would expand upon recent criminal justice reforms by implementing a system to prospectively and retroactively seal conviction and arrest records. On May 20th, 2021, a board position letter was sent to the author's office opposing the bill unless it was amended to exclude healing arts boards within the Department of Consumer Affairs. The author's office responded by email and said that they believe that excluding the healing arts boards would undermine the intent of the bill within the sector of employment. To summarize this bill would expand automatic arrest record sealing to felony arrests if the individual was neither charged nor convicted either 6 years after the arrest or otherwise 3 years after the arrest for less serious felonies. It would also expand automatic conviction record relief for a defendant convicted on or after January 1st, 2005 to non-serious, non-sexual, and non-violent felonies after an individual completes all terms of incarceration, probation, mandatory supervision, post-release supervision, and parole, and a further period of 4 years without any new convictions. Further, this bill would allow individuals convicted of a felony to petition the court for sealing relief after completing all terms of incarceration, probation, mandatory supervision, post-release supervision, and parole, and a further period of 2 years without any new convictions. And these petitions are done on a case-by-case basis with final decision-making authority retained by the courts. The exclusion of records of arrest and conviction that were granted relief from state summary criminal history information above does not apply to records for which the record holder is required to register as a sex offender, has an active record in the supervised release file, or if based on information available in the department's record, it appears the person is currently serving a sentence, or if there is an indication of pending criminal charges. The exclusion of records also does not apply if the records are required to be disseminated by federal law. So that is all I have for this bill. And if the board and staff would like to discuss this further, please go ahead.
Right, any comments? I mean, I don't think that our opposition should change. Even though it did not receive a good response. Any other comments?
This is Jed. I think, they basically told us no, so I don't know if it strengthens our argument at all to change our position from oppose unless amended to just oppose. I think oppose unless amended is appropriate. We told them what we want. We're opposed to it. This is really bad for us. It's bad for the public. It's dangerous. Can't believe they would want healing arts boards to license felons. And it's not like the thing that rubs me about this is it's not like we don't do this already. If someone has a conviction, we still look at it and determine whether or not we can license them. What this bill does is take away our right to decide on whether or not we think they should be licensed by taking away the information so that we can't see it. Is it in effect just sticking your head in the sand and saying, well, we don't see anything, so we're going to assume you're okay, instead of saying, well, you had a problem and you might be okay, but we want to talk about it and we want to make sure. And I think it's dangerous. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a romanticized view of total rehabilitation without taking into consideration things like the healing arts and so forth. Any other comments? Well, Jasmine, it looks like we're going to leave then our position oppose unless amended. I don't know what good it'll do, but hopefully it won't get through the legislature, so we'll see. So with that, what's the next one? Is it F?
Yes, item 14F is SB 806, the Healing Arts Bill. At its May 10th, 2021 meeting, the board chose to take a support position on this bill. This bill is located in the Assembly Committee on Business and Professions. It was amended on July 13th, 2021 to be the board's sunset bill. In addition to extending the sunset date for the Physician Assistant Board until January 1st, 2026, this bill would make various statutory changes to reflect the independence of the Physician Assistant Board as a standalone board. The bill would remove a number of outdated references to the Physician Assistant Board having to consult with or receive prior approval from the Medical Board of California prior to taking certain actions. Additionally, This bill would remove the requirement that the board establish a passing score and time and place for each examination, since the current examination is administered by the National Commission on Certification of Physician Assistants, otherwise known as the NCCPA, a private organization. So if the board and staff would like to discuss this bill any further, please go ahead.
All right, any thoughts on this, people? We've already supported it, so I don't see any reason to change that. Any comments that would cause us to change? All right, very well. Hearing none. Jasmine, please, item G.
Okay, item 14G is AB 562. It's labeled as the Frontline COVID-19 Provider Mental Health Resiliency Act of 2021, Healthcare Providers Mental Health Services. At its May 10th, 2021 meeting, the board chose to take a watch position. This bill is currently located in the Senate Committee on Appropriations. It would establish the Frontline COVID-19 Provider Mental Health Resiliency Act of 2021, which would require DCA to establish a mental health resiliency program until January 1st, 2025, in consultation with relevant health arts boards. Under the program, DCA would contract with one or more vendors of mental health services as defined for the duration of the program. The individual boards would then be required to notify licensees and professionals of the program, establish application requirements, including that the applicant was a frontline COVID-19 worker, and require that all eligible licensees be granted access to the program. An applicant who knowingly makes a false statement on an application for the program is guilty of a misdemeanor. The concerns that the board had discussed at the last meeting were in regards to the funding of this program. And I was in contact with the author staff for this. And basically, they said that the bill currently still does not have a funding source and would therefore the costs of the program would be funded through the participating boards or DCA pro rata. And the author notes that the funding mechanisms are other funding mechanisms are currently being explored and is committed to ensuring that license fee increases are not triggered. They stated that if there is no outside source of funding or if the costs of the program are not absorbable, that the author is willing to amend the bill to narrow the bill substantially or look for a different funding source down the road. So if the board or staff would like to discuss this bill any further, please go ahead.
Okay, well, the concerns obviously still remain the same. They're working on funding, but thank you, Jasmine, for letting us know what the author's staff view was. Does anybody have any comments that might help us reevaluate a watch position, or do we stick with watch? All right, Jasmine, it sounds like we're going to stick with watch on that. Item H, please.
Okay, item 14H is SB 395, labeled as Healthy Outcomes and Prevention Education Act. This bill is located in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations, and this bill would establish the Health Careers Opportunity Grant Program under the administration of the Health Professions Education Foundation for the purpose of improving access by underrepresented students from disadvantaged backgrounds to health profession programs offered by the state's public post-secondary education institutions. This bill requires HPEF in providing grants to eligible entities to prioritize applicants that reflect a comprehensive approach to establishing, enhancing, and expanding health educational programs that propose to increase the number of underrepresented students from disadvantaged backgrounds pursuing a health professions career. And so according to the Office of Statewide Health and Planning and Development, HPEF was established in 1987 and is the state's only nonprofit foundation statutorily created to encourage persons from underrepresented communities to become health professionals and increase access to health providers in medically underserved areas. supported by grants and donations and licensing fees and special funds. HPEF provides scholarship and loan repayment programs to students and graduates who agree to practice in California's medically underserved communities. Housed in OSHPD, HPEF has given 17,771 awards totaling more than $219 million to allied health, nursing, and mental health and medical students and recent graduates practicing in all 58 counties of California. So this bill was actually introduced in February 11th, 2021, so it's a relatively new bill, and we have not discussed this bill yet. So the board and staff would like to discuss this further. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Jasmine. So the first question that jumps out at us is fiscal impact to us in terms of license fees and so forth. Is there any analysis of that yet?
No, I do not have that information yet, but I can work on that for you.
Yeah, I think that's an important first step. Anybody else have comments?
So may I speak?
Please go
Hello?
ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So I occupy one of the seats on HPEF board. The medical board has 2 seats there. HPEF has an excellent mission and track record. Funds are supported by licensing fees, significant from the medical board. Definitely worth supporting. One thing I would mention is that HPEF previously and currently housed on an OSHPED. OSHPED has been elevated to a department with lots of other responsibilities, duties, et cetera. And so we're told, and I believe it's true, that this very, very important program will continue, and funding has not been an issue. I don't know, and I think the question just asked whether PA license fees support HPEF. Certainly, mid-levels like physician associates can apply and receive loan forgiveness through HPEF if they agree to practice in underserved area for a given period of time.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. It sounds just like a great program. And I think we just need to be aware of how it would impact our budgets, our licensing fees, and so forth. But certainly, it's an excellent program. So, Jasmine, if you could work up that financial analysis for next time, that would be terrific. Any other member comments?
Yeah, this is Dr. Alexander. I just wanted to say that this is a program that was actually administered by the federal government, and it still is, I think, to some extent. It's been around for a long time and has really been instrumental in diversifying the health professions. And so I would hope that this is something we would support. What this does is give money here in the state for educational entities to kind of replicate what's somewhat being done on the federal level. The federal level has cut back dramatically on funding these programs, which is probably why this program is popping up here in the state of California, because we've been so successful at, again, diversifying health professions, but a lot more work needs to be done. And so this is a good effort that's being championed in the in the State House. So I hope we would support something like this.
Yeah, and Will, your input here would be helpful. And Jasmine, do we need to take a position on this right now or wait for I mean, my inclination is if this is new, it's going to take a while. And before we issue support, which I think all of us would, we'd want to understand that financial analysis. So what is your thinking, Jasmine, on staging of us issuing a support or waiting for the financial analysis? And Will, you might want to speak to that too.
I think that since this bill is still pretty early on, we don't have to take a support position, I don't believe. I can look further into this and then we can discuss this at the next meeting, but it's totally up to the board if you would like to take a formal position on this, but it's still early on. Like I said, the bill was introduced on February 11th, 2021, so it still has a ways to go. But I'm not sure if Will has any other feedback on that.
Just pulled up the history here, and I mean, it does look like it's past the first house, if I'm not mistaken. It's on to the second. Is that right, Jasmine? Sorry, was I on mute?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I see that.
Yeah, and it's been re-referred to Committee on Appropriations on the 15th of last month. So I mean, I wouldn't be so sure. I mean, it is moving, and I don't know that we can just assume it's gonna. So I see on May 17th it was placed on appropriation suspense file, but then they set it for hearing on May 20th, passed out of committee, read a second time, read a third time, and it's in assembly, referred to Committee on Tax and Health, passed out of that committee as amended, and re-referred to appropriation. So it's back there. I mean, it could move, it could not, I suppose. So, yeah.
But it does sound, Will, like it's moving pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Well, I don't purport to be an expert on the politics of it, but I mean, in 5 months, it's gone from one house to the other and gone through a couple of committees, and it's back to approach. So I mean, it could pass at any time out of that. So I would say not to wait if you have a strong opinion on it.
Well, I certainly don't mind supporting it. I mean, it is an excellent program. It sounds like, Carl, you may want to make a motion on this.
Well, thank you for listening to this. I think that the reason, one of my speculations in terms of the reason for it moving so quickly is because there was a commission that looked at the future of healthcare providers in the state, and it really identified areas that we could fuel in order to help move the number of health care providers into these professions. And pipeline programs seem to be one of the most effective way to do this. And so this is why you see this legislation, and it's gotten broad support. I've seen this a number of times at work, across my desk from various people, and I know it's, like I said, I know it's a very popular bill that I know the governor has made some comments on as well. So I would throw out a motion that we as a board would support this particular bill. I don't know how to phrase the motion, but maybe someone can help me. But all I know is that I believe as a board we should be supportive of this particular program.
Okay, so it sounds like Dr. Allen is making a motion to issue support and direct staff to take the appropriate steps to signal our support. Does anybody care to second?
I would like to second.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Madam Moderator, if you'd open it for public comment, please.
I'm opening up the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type "I would like to make a public comment" and send it to all panelists. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please close the Q&A. And then, Ms. Gompers, if you'd call the roll, please.
Charles Alexander. Juan Armenta.
Aye.
Sonia Early.
Aye.
Jed Grant.
Aye.
Diego Inzunza.
Aye.
And that concludes it.
Thank you. So the motion carries by unanimous vote. So staff, you will please see to that. Thank you very much. And I think, Jasmine, that brings us to item I.
AB 1306, the Health Professions Careers Opportunity Program. This bill was introduced on February 19, 2021, but it has also progressed pretty quickly and is in the Senate Committee on Appropriations currently. This bill permits OSHPED to undertake the following through the Health Professions Career Opportunity Program. Fund 20 pilot programs to serve 4,800 students with 5 programs each at University of California campuses, California State University, and California Community College campuses, and up to 5 programs located at private universities. Secure ongoing funding and establish statewide infrastructure to develop, implement, and manage the pilot program, and fund internships and fellowships to enable more students to compete for admission to graduate health professions, schools, or employment in the field, including but not limited to paid summer internships for college students in community health centers, public health departments, public behavioral health settings, and with providers serving older adults, as well as community-based initiatives that promote health equity. 1 year post-undergraduate fellowships for in-depth pre-graduate school experience in primary care and prevention, behavioral health, and older adult health, and create 100 post-bachelorette reapplicant slots annually at existing UC, CSU, and private California-based programs, and the provision of student scholarships for reapplicant post-bachelorette students to cover 100% of program tuition. This bill would also require priority be given to campuses with large numbers of underrepresented people of color and low-income students, demonstrated commitment to diversity and associated institutional change, a track record of providing tailored student support, and strong health professions school partnerships. Requires OSHPED to administer a competitive application process for interested institutions and 5-year pilot program grants, provide technical assistance to applicants, serve as repository for best practices, conduct pilot program evaluations, and advocate on behalf of pilot programs. If the board and staff would like to discuss this bill any further, please go ahead.
Jasmine, it sounds like, and maybe Will, if you've looked at the history, it sounds like this is moving with that same type of pathway as the prior bill. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, it appears so.
Okay, any comments from members, and in particular, I suppose, those in education?
Dr. Hawkins, may I make a comment?
Please.
So this is new to me, although I'm on HPEF and interact with OSHPD regularly. I like the idea about pipelines. I like the idea about diversity. I believe this is new programs, and that's my only comment.
Somebody educate me. What is a reapplicant slot? It says creating 100 post-baccalaureate reapplicant. Not familiar with that term, reapplicant. What does that mean?
Dr. Alexander, it's these post-baccalaureate programs are for students who spend an additional year beyond the baccalaureate degree in a formal program, improving their academic profile for reapplication to medical school. So some students are denied when they apply to medical school. And so there's a number of programs around the country that will take students who have been denied and provide a year-long experience supporting their academic record, giving them experience and exposure, and then helping them reapply to medical school. So those are called reapplicant programs, for example.
Okay, great. Thank you.
This is Jed, if I could comment as well.
Please, Jed.
So this covers, I assume, would cover PA programs as well. Dr. Alexander, do you know, is it only for medical schools?
Actually, these would be for health profession schools. So yes, it would cover PA programs.
Okay, we have a lot of, just at the school where I work, we get about 4,000 applicants per year for 45 seats. And there are a number of these post baccalaureate sort of pathway programs that prepare people for PA school, med school. The concern that I have is that when I look at the curriculum that many of these programs have, it's all over the place. There's really no rhyme or reason to how they develop their programs and what they train their students to do. Some are very good and some are less good. So I think my question for this bill would be, is there going to be a unified curriculum or an accreditation, or is it just basically a pilot to see how different ones work? And also, how is this being paid for?
This is Dr. Alexander again. Jed, those are good questions. There are what we call more formal post-bac, and then there's what they'll call informal post-bacs. The formal post-bac programs have a set curriculum, and you would see that, for example, UC has a consortium of five schools that conduct post-bac programs, and those 5 schools have a set curriculum and a pathway to help students get into medical school. The dental schools started something similar years ago as well, and they have again a really set curriculum that prepares students for dental school. And most times the professional schools work with these post-bac programs to help line up a curriculum that will make their students competitive and prepared to move to the next level. Now, I have to admit, there's some schools that claim to have post-bac programs, but they're very unstructured. And so they have a curriculum, but it's not a set curriculum or a standard curriculum that students would take. And they work with an advisor or a pre-health advisor and helping these students select courses that will help them reapply or apply to these professional schools. And so that would be a concern. But there are, like I said, there are programs out there that have been long established for years that will prepare and have set curriculums for students who are interested in these post-baccalaureate programs.
Thanks, Dr. Alexander. I think that helps answer my question. I appreciate that. I just wonder about, giving a lot of money to programs that are not well structured or that don't have a lot of oversight. But I guess the administrative component of the bill mostly covers that. So that answers my question. Thank you.
So, Jasmine, it looks like one of the things that we would ask you to do is see if you can dig out a fiscal analysis of this for us. Does anybody think we should support or watch this?
I would take the same position as we did with the previous bill that we talked about. They're parallel in terms of what they are all about. And I think, again, they're good programs. They've been around a pretty long time from the federal level, and to have one in the state, or to have them in the state, I think is a good thing for us.
Sounds like, Charles, you want to make a motion in that regard.
Again, I would make a motion that the Physician Assistant Board go on record as supporting this particular bill.
Okay, so Dr. Alexander has made a motion to support this bill and direct staff to issue the appropriate communiques to the author's office. Is there anybody that cares to second?
I would like to second. This is Sonia Early.
Very well. Madam Moderator, if you'd open the question and answer feature, please.
Yes, this is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. Members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. If you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type, "I would like to make a public comment" in the Ask field and send it to all panelists. And when prompted, click the Unmute Me button. Board President, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Gompers, if you'd call the vote, please.
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza. And that concludes it.
Motion then carries by unanimous vote. Thank you so much. I think, Jasmine, that's the end of your presentation, is it not?
Yes, it is. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Hey, thanks, Jasmine. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item would be item 15, agenda items for the next meeting. Rosanna, do I have something for that, or am I simply inquiring if there are any additions that members would like to make for the next meeting?
Additional agenda items they want for the November board meeting,
Okay.
besides our usual agenda items.
Anybody? Okay, it looks like we can close that part of our meeting. And Rosanna, my understanding, I think from an email, was that we have no closed session matters. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, very well. So then we'll be moving to 17 in a moment. But before we do that, I want to thank everybody again for appearing. I want to, again, express our condolences to Jen Carlquist. And finally, I do want to thank again Will for his help in the time he has been with us. I think he's been exemplary, and congratulate him on his new promotion. And who knows, maybe in a year or two we'll get him back. We'll see. So thank you, Will, for that. And board members, if you'd like to comment, please do so before we adjourn.
Thank you, Will. You've done a great job with us and happy to have you promote. Sorry to have you leave, but again, just congratulations on a job well done.
Oh, well, thanks very much. Appreciate it. I appreciate working with all of you. You were my first client when I came over to DCA, taking over for Christy Shields. And I know that your incoming counsel, Michael Knotes, is a very experienced attorney and will serve you well, whether that's in an interim capacity or a permanent, I'm not quite sure, but he will certainly be taking over basically starting now. And it's been a pleasure working with you all. I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication to the safety of the people of California and to the service of the profession as well. And yeah, look forward to keeping up with you in the future. As Sonia said, I may be back in a year or two, or I may not be.
Well, great. Thank you, Will. Jed, I think you were going to comment.
Yeah, this mute button is killing me here. Will, thanks. Just wanted to say a personal note of thanks for all your help, especially with, we had this huge legislation thing, and then COVID hit, and you were irreplaceable to me when I was president and trying to work with some of this stuff. Appreciate your analytical mind and your calm, cool head as we navigated some pretty rough seas. So thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure working with you, and wish you the best of luck going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Jed. Same to you. We did work very closely together during some difficult times, and I think we did what we could to make sure that physician assistants can get out there and help as many people as possible. And thanks again, Jed, for your service. And for anyone's information, I'm just going over to the Department of Public Health to help work on vaccine stuff. So I'm not going too far away, and perhaps we'll even be crossing paths in one way, shape, or form or another. And I'm also informed by the powers that be that we neglected agenda item 4, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. So we should probably do that.
All right. Let's do that. Just any public comment on items not on the agenda, Madam Operator, if you would open that, please.
Yes, thank you. This is the moderator. Members of the public, the instructions are on the screen. If you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, I would like to make a public comment, and click send to all panelists. No requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so great. Well, I think we can move to adjournment in a second. And I just a final note. Want to thank Jed Grant for his military service overseas and wish him a safe return and a safe tour of duty out there. So take care of yourself, Jed.
Thanks, Juan. I appreciate it.
You bet. Okay, so Will, I think we are safe to adjourn, are we not?
Yeah, I've been so sad. I want to find something else for you guys to do to hang out a little longer, but unfortunately, I know nothing else to do for today. Bittersweet, but thank you all again. Appreciate the kind words today.
All right, excellent. Well, good luck, Will. I'm sure we'll cross paths again.
Yeah, so good luck to you all as well. Appreciate it. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Maybe you can come back in November and hang out with us.
Yeah, just for fun. I'll have lots of public comments. Don't worry.
Well, rumor has it that if we do come back, we'll have some pretty good food to eat at lunchtime. So hopefully we can do that again sometime. So all right. So with that, I will go ahead and end the meeting and call for adjournment. And we will see you all hopefully next time live.
Thank
So
you, everyone. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you.